In 2021, Texas lawmaker Matt Krause released a list of over 850 books that he declared should be banned from Texas public schools. One book that rose to the top of Krause's and similar lists was Maya Kobabe's graphic novel memoir, Genderqueer. It and similar books were being targeted by watch groups and politicians because they should not make anyone, quote, feel discomfort, guilt, anguish, or any other form of psychological distress on account of the individual's race or sex. In a world where queer voices are being heard louder and louder every day, these threats are very real and could set us back decades. In the realm of graphic novels, queer books have seen an unprecedented sales boom as books fly into libraries and homes. What's the deal with these graphic novels? First, a quick history lesson. Queer comics have existed as long as the medium has existed, although many point to Tom of Finland as having produced some of the first queer comics. Following his work would be comics in publications like The Advocate and a slew of underground comics inspired by queer lives and fixations. Works like Gay Comics and Dykes to Watch Out For would set the stage for generations of cartoonists to come, with novels like Stuck Rubber Baby making headway for queer graphic novels. What came next would change the world. The internet. For comics, it was a new frontier for publishing. Now, anyone with internet access could get their comics out in front of audiences with just a few clicks. Webcomics began to get popular around 1997 as internet access spread around the world. Queer comics would flourish in this new digital world, with many magazines transferring their comics to a digital format over the years. The queer webcomics boom would see works like Boy Meets Boy, You Plus Me, The Less Than Epic Adventures of TJ and Amal, and countless others. Then came the next big game changer, Kickstarter. Kickstarter launched in 2009 and provides an all-or-nothing approach to crowdfunding. Now, creators could raise the funds to print their books, send them to their backers with books to sell after at conventions. This would lead in a wave of comic anthologies, webcomic collections, and graphic novels. Kickstarter had provided a centralized, trusted platform that comickers could use to fund their work. Works like 2015's Beyond anthology would stand out as highlights of the Kickstarter publishing boom, showcasing queer sci-fi and fantasy that fought back against the bury your gays trope. These projects didn't go unnoticed by publishers like First Second, Random House, and HarperCollins, and soon they were signing creators. Comics published by these companies would have had a much broader reach and be able to skip over the direct market by going straight to libraries and bookstores. This would lead to the current rush of queer graphic novels, most aimed at a young teen audience. Books like The Magic Fish by Trung Le Nguyen, Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me by Mariko Tamaki, and Rosemary Valero O'Connell, The Witch Boy by Molly Cox Ostertag, Genderqueer by Maya Kobabe, and Check Please by Ngozi Ukazu, all released in the past 5 years. These critically praised books are pushing boundaries and claiming awards in the name of queer voices. Aside from all being part of the queer graphic novel boom, what do these books have in common? All have been challenged by parent groups or lawmakers who have attempted to get the books banned from libraries and schools. Across the United States, there has been an uptick in attempts to ban books with themes of race, abortion, and anything under the LGBTQ umbrella. When we look deeper into book bans, we tend to see people scared of change in their worlds. So let's see what these books have to offer. Genderqueer is the most challenged book in the country right now, with it being on multiple lists for containing inappropriate material. What we really have is one overtly sexual page and the general idea of not fitting into the gender binary. The excessive talk of gender and rejecting the gender binary seems to upset conservatives more than anything. Because rejection of the binary is different and again makes them scared. So they try to make a world where no one will question the gender binary or being heterosexual. Kobabe points out that, quote, queer youth are often forced to look outside their homes and outside the education system to find information on who they are. Removing or restricting queer books in libraries and schools is like cutting a lifeline for queer youth who might not even know what terms to ask Google to find out more about their own identities, bodies, and health. Next is Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me, which features two girls kissing and an abortion storyline, with abortion being another reason books are often contested. Educating young people on how this medical service works is seen as inappropriate in a lot of the country. How anyone could be offended by Valero O'Connell's art is beyond me. Check Please has boys kissing. That's the most remotely offensive thing that happens in the book. So, boys kiss and find love with each other. It's cute. And it gives a real sense of hope for finding a group that accepts you and lets you be yourself. The Witch Boy has only one mention of gay dads and doesn't even utter the word trans, just puts the idea of gender roles into question. Aster's search for acceptance among his family is something any child can relate to, queer or not. It's hard to be a young kid going through puberty, finding out that you're different, and just wanting your parents to understand that. The magic fish being part of book bans is one of the most ridiculous things because the book is so sweet. There is mention of being gay and seeking out acceptance from your parents. These ideas are good and could really help someone out there struggling with the same things. Tien's relationship with his mother and attempts to figure out how to talk to her through the fairy tales are an extremely relatable queer feeling. Sometimes you don't know how to voice your feelings to a parent and it all comes out wrong or someone else reveals your secrets for you. It's devastating to be in that moment and think that someone else might have just destroyed your relationship with one of the most important people in your young life. Knowing that your mother will still love you is one of the most important lessons a young queer person learns. The book also has an important lesson for a parent to learn, to see the impact of their approval and how much a child looks up to them. Most attempts to ban these books have resulted in temporarily pulling the books only to return them to library shelves once they are deemed to be appropriate. The American Library Association has condemned these acts, pointing out that over the years, many people have tried to ban books by claiming that they are obscene. If persons like the petitioners obtain similar orders every time they have objections to a book, it will chill the freedom and desire to read and stifle the voices of authors and publishers. Librarians, educators, authors, publishers, and booksellers will be targeted for making available books that everyone has the right to choose to read. And it's a warning we should take seriously because there are those who would seek out to silence any voices unlike their own. Right now, there's no stopping the queer graphic novel boom. In 2021, during the pandemic, BookScan reports read that LGBTQ graphic novel sales were up 40% from the previous year, with overall sales on graphic novels being up to 21.9%. There's no better time to be a queer graphic novel creator. No better time to get your book out there in the hands of eager readers, searching out a story that will connect with them. Queer comics have continued to thrive on the internet, in conventions, comic bookstores, and all the places in between. These books speak of an experience that not everyone might be familiar with, but for those it strikes a chord with, it hits true every time. These comics have been called explicit, pornographic, and inappropriate, but often are as harmless as any children's story containing a heterosexual relationship. As long as queer voices seek to be heard, there will be objections to them, but the current run of bans hasn't stopped the wave, and queer voices continue to be heard throughout the country and the world.